Let me just reiterate, while we're waiting for a Republican senator to come and object to these nominees, that they came out of the Judiciary Committee back in January, that they were voted out of the Judiciary Committee by a, in one case, unanimous bipartisan vote of 19-0. I'm informed that the senator from Arizona, Senator Kyl, is coming to object. He sits on the Judiciary Committee. He likely was one of those 19 that voted in favor of this nominee at the committee level. I don't know who the one vote was for Judge Wynn, who the one vote against him was, but he cleared the Judiciary Committee by a vote of 18-1. Again, a strong bipartisan vote of support. And yet, I'm informed by the floor staff that they're finding somebody to come and object to these nominees, who've now been held through all of February, through all of March, through half of April, despite being, in one case, unanimous votes in the Judiciary Committee, and the other an 18-1 overwhelming bipartisan majority.
Mr. President, reserving the right to object, might I ask my colleague to restate the request?
Absolutely. The request is to call up executive calendar numbers 656 and 657, which are the nominations of Judge Albert Diaz and Judge James Wynn to the United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. As the distinguished senator from Arizona will recall, since he sits with me on the Judiciary Committee, Judge Albert Diaz was voted out of the Judiciary Committee by a vote of 19-0 back on January 28, 2010. If my math is correct, that means that the distinguished senator from Arizona voted for this nominee in the Judiciary Committee. Judge James Wynn was reported out the same day, January 28th, by a vote of 18-1. I do not know if the distinguished senator was the single dissenting vote in this overwhelming vote in support of Judge Wynn's nomination. Judge Diaz has served in the Marine Corps. He has 9 years of state court judicial experience. Judge Wynn is a certified military trial judge and a captain in the United States Navy Reserves. And I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to executive session. And notwithstanding Rule 22, the Senate proceed to those executive calendar numbers 656 and 657, that the nominations be confirmed in block, that the motions to reconsider be laid upon the table in block, that any statements relating to the nominations appear at the appropriate place in the record as if read, and the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate my colleague restating the objection, just reserving the right to object, and I will object. As I think my colleagues are aware, the two leaders have worked out a process for consideration of at least some of the judicial nominations. My understanding is that there is another agreement on at least one and maybe two circuit court nominations that they are working out time agreements on right now that would occur, I presume, later this week. And I think it's important to let the two leaders work those agreements out, as a result of which, reluctantly, I will have to object to my colleague's request.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President, I appreciate the distinguished senator's objection. We do have 101 nominees on the executive calendar. The objections and holds, which are secret, are holding people up, as I said, for an average of 106 days. So while it is nice that one or two might be given a time agreement by the minority party, it does very little to relieve the blockade that the minority party is engaged in of judicial and executive nominees. So I will continue forward, and I will call up executive calendar number 701. The nomination of Nancy Freudenthal to be a judge for the United States District Court for the District of Wyoming. She passed out of the committee by voice vote. A voice vote, as the presiding officer knows, is a vote without dissent. On February 11th, 2010, she has decades of experience as a public servant and as a lawyer in private practice. She currently is Wyoming's First Lady. If confirmed, she will be that state's first female federal judge. It is the practice of the Judiciary Committee not to put forward judges unless the consent of the home senators has been obtained, and I would point out that both of the senators from Wyoming are Republicans. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to executive session, and notwithstanding Rule 22, the Senate proceed to executive calendar number 701, the nomination of Nancy Freudenthal, that the nomination be confirmed and the motion to reconsider be laid upon the table, that any statements relating to the nomination appear at the appropriate place in the record as if read, and that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, for the same reasons noted earlier, I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President, I will now call up executive calendar number 702. It's the nomination of Judge D. Price Marshall to serve on the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Arkansas. A district court decision has been held, nominee has been held and filibustered. This district court nominee, Judge Marshall, is currently a judge on the Arkansas Court of Appeals. He spent 15 years in private practice in Jonesboro, Arkansas. He served as a law clerk to Seventh Circuit Judge Richard S. Arnold. Judge Marshall was reported out of the Judiciary Committee on February 11, 2010, by voice vote and without dissent. He is held and blockaded on this floor. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to executive session, and notwithstanding Rule 22, the Senate proceed to executive calendar number 702, that the nomination be confirmed and the motion to reconsider be laid upon the table, that any statements relating to the nomination appear at the appropriate place in the record as if read, and that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President, let's try another one. I will call up executive calendar number 704. This is the nomination of Judge Timothy Black. Again, a district court nominee, a local trial court nominee, to serve on the United States District Court for the Southern District of Ohio. Judge Black has served the Southern District of Ohio for 6 years as a federal magistrate judge. He is currently a federal magistrate judge in the court for which he's nominated as district judge. Before that, he spent a decade as a municipal court judge and had a long career as a civil litigator. He was reported out of the Judiciary Committee without dissent after a voice vote on February 11th of this year. February, March, April, more than 2 months ago, he has languished on the Senate floor after clearing the committee without dissent. A judge, a district judge, a trial judge who serves now as the magistrate judge. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to executive session, and notwithstanding Rule 22, the Senate proceed to executive calendar number 704, the nomination of Judge Timothy Black. That the nomination be confirmed and the motion to reconsider be laid upon the table, that any statements relating to the nomination appear at the appropriate place in the record as if read, and that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, for the same reasons stated before, I object.